increase the buying power within India. And within that perspective, from R&D, I feel we have a big role to play. If we blindly copy electronics and solutions from West, the price points will not be something which will meet India's requirement. So what is requirement? Like in the morning session we heard, we could send a satellite to Mars in 1/10 the cost with same zero defect quality that our counterparts from US did, which China and Japan could not do it. We did that with zero defect. So same way, we can create using out-of-the-box innovation, custom-made for India, using our frugal innovation, to bring these products for healthcare, for food processing, at a price point which our lower middle class people can afford. And I think this is the wheel which will make in India really successful, because right now we are talking about 250 million of middle class, but there is a double the amount of people which are actually sitting below. And once we move that wheel, Make in India is going to create employment opportunities for all those people, and it's like chicken and egg kind of story. Right. So we have a great opportunity from R&D perspective.
Okay. Professor Moona, now here's the big elephant in the room, and you hear lots of people talk about it saying we don't have capabilities. You talked about IT revolution starting with MCAs from the road, but today that world has changed very dramatically, both in terms of young people who are coming out or being trained with immense capabilities. What is missing on the capability and skill front for this particular sector? How do we go about changing that? Because it will take time.
Right. So I talked about two examples. One is, of course, the IT sector. The other one was Maruti Suzuki example. And both are equally relevant. IT sector was an example where the growth of IT sector could happen because MCAs and such kind of education was the only requirement. And therefore, it could happen. The software could come from outside over the wire. You modify this and send it out over the wire. And therefore, net outcome of the software industry is a phenomenal growth of internet that has happened in this country. Now, I talk about the second aspect, and that is Maruti Suzuki. Before Maruti Suzuki, we hardly had any automotive sector. Now, Maruti Suzuki came, and when it came, it brought in a lot of ancillaries which actually came out. It is not Maruti Suzuki that itself was important. It is a lot of ancillaries that came out, and because of that, an eco-structure got created, and because of which many other players could come in and found the ready-made eco-structure. When we look at ESDM infrastructure, we need both of these. We need education part, where we need to actually tell them how to do soldering, what are the things needed for doing the soldering, how do you do, all kind of manufacturing related aspects. How do we handle chemicals? How do we handle safely, ATMPs or whatever, all kind of things. At the other hand, we also need to have ancillaries which should be set up. When I actually talked to several people, I think one important aspect that always came out is when we move, let's say I can move one small unit, but then the product of that small unit again has to go out of the country, and import and export is not that trivial, okay? Both in terms of logistics of carrying it to the ports, as well as taking it out, because of the regulations and these kind of things. Can we not have a bigger infrastructure? And that bigger infrastructure doesn't happen overnight. So ancillaries, which was a Maruti Suzuki model, is very, very important role that one plays in ESDM sector. And that, I think, is one point that is missing.
Okay. Let me take a few questions now. Please don't make comments if you have questions on what my colleagues here have said. We're very happy to hear. Please.
I have a question about the CDOT. I think just want to take your example about ancillary units, right? I think during the 90s days, there are a lot of ancillary units, CDOT manufacturing units. What happened to them? Where are they? I think we have built it, and it's gone. Now we are again building it.
I think that's an interesting example. First, a small correction. I come from CDAC, not from CDOT. But having said that, I can probably also tell you a little bit more about CDOT. Yes, CDOT's ancillary industry is what we are seeing mostly as telecom. So most of the telecom that has happened is because of CDOT that was there in 80s. I think it is the right time that CDOT got out of that, and therefore the other kind of industry which gave the impetus and the push that was needed for telecom.
I have one question regarding the manufacturing education. I studied my bachelor's in Mumbai University, went to Texas Tech United States to study my master's. Only after I finished hands-on experience in the nanotech lab, did an internship for 6 months at XFAB where I did my thesis, it was possible for me to get into the manufacturing side because company could absorb me based on my skills. We lack all of these things in India. And unless that groundwork starts right now, we cannot develop the skilled force that's what needed when the fabs are established. So that should start first. And what is the approach at this point of time? Do we have the state-of-the-art facilities that would develop those top-notch quality engineers to work in those fabs, to develop our own IP in future?
And let me add a question on this one. What is the capability of the industry to absorb some of those graduates who are coming out?
So I want to just partition the workforce into two places in manufacturing. The manufacturing industry, majority of the manufacturing jobs are unskilled labor. You can go, people in Malaysia are getting hired. They're not PhDs and they're not BTechs. They're not even engineers. You know, you're talking about people who have probably done a diploma out of high school. You know, that is the mass hiring that is done in manufacturing. So manufacturing, majority of the job is pretty much unskilled. You can get skilled labor from anywhere in the world to run manufacturing. They'll come. Once you set up, they will come. So today for us to tell that, you know, we are struggling to have skilled talent for manufacturing is not right. We have forget engineers, our science graduates, diploma holders are more than capable of running the factories in India. It is not a problem at all. If people can go set up manufacturing in Malaysia, they can set up anywhere else. India can provide them, 10x the talent. So when we talk about talent in manufacturing, we can easily separate them out. Mass, India is fully ready. No problem about talent. You can set it up tomorrow and we can hire. And the top, as you talked about the PhDs, you need a handful of them. You don't need masses of them.
Okay, I have one question, Meenakshi from Technology and Cog. So my question to this entire panel is, I'm hearing things on semiconductor design. We are talking about the areas where the entrepreneurs should be working in and so on and so forth. So as an entrepreneur myself, when I'm trying to conceptualize a product and take it to a place where it can be put on the market shelf, what does this panel think? We have pockets. We have semiconductor design centers. We have ecosystem bits and pieces of manufacturing, and I have my own personal experience of what is broken. However, what I would like to hear from this panel is, what do you think is broken? And what would it take to fix those bits and pieces which are preventing us to connect the semiconductor design piece to the actual product design, to actually putting plastic around it, to putting something on the market shelf?
Since I'm very closely related to semiconductor, where I guess I'm trying to understand the question, right? Where the things that are broken for you to take from a semiconductor to a product, right, on the shelf.
And so this entire ecosystem and the supply chain, where are things broken?
Yeah.
And what can we do about it?
Okay. So if you're trying to sell semiconductor, obviously, it's a very expensive proposition, right? You got to create the channel, you got to do marketing. Even if you have a product, right, to get that semiconductor product into the market, into design wins and all that, that's a long, quite an expensive process. And you got to create all these channels and so forth. So there are established players that you need to work with and so forth. So let's say, for example, a made in India semiconductor chip by an Indian company that is going to be sold in in the world market, it is a very, very expensive proposition. So obviously there's a lot of gaps in that, the channel and so on. But I think, where a solution could be, there is where this business model changes. So one of the things is, when we're in 2015, right? We're not in 2004 or when TSMC started, right? I mean, just to allude to what Ganesh was saying, when TSMC started in Taiwan, I'm from TI, so Maurice Chang was a fab person at that, was a fab director at TI, and there was no infrastructure in Taiwan, nothing. There was no graduates, there was nothing, right? He went there with a vision, and as he said, right, the government backed him up, and they had a vision, and that's how they did. So I think, coming back to this on the semiconductor product, right, we need to have a creative model, right, which will have all the players in it. For example, right, I mean, maybe the government can help in terms of identifying some products and helping them take it all the way. In terms of, getting it designed in some of your telecom parts or something for made in India parts for the Indian market, which the government of India can justify why they're doing it. It could be an opportunity where you find that this product could be a replacement product for somebody else, right? So you could work that angle. And I mean, this morning there was a talk about a company, Ineda, which was trying to make some wearable chips and so forth, right? He talked about it's completely designed in India. I wish he said it was completely made in India with whatever infrastructure we have. For example, we do have an infrastructure to productize it, but we are not productizing it. It's being productized in China, or I don't know, maybe Silicon Valley. I don't know where it is, but we're not seeing the silicon. We could bring up that silicon in TESOL, in Electronic City, but yet we're not doing it. So I guess, there are some elements that are missing, and it could be because people don't understand the infrastructure that's available. I was told that a lot of the government institutions bring up a lot of good products, but they don't make it into the commercial aspects and get into the shelves or, extremely well-designed products. Maybe there is an angle there where we can fill the gap, where the commercial, industrial guys can work with them, and maybe the government guys can become a little bit easier to work with. So I guess, it's a learning. I'm absolutely, one message that I would like, I was telling Professor Pankaj, I have an agenda. My agenda is this, that take this message to whoever you work for and so on, right, and in your own organizations, that Make in India is not just a slogan, it's really happening. And the people who actually participate now are going to see the benefits within a reasonable time. Not necessarily in the next 10, 20 years, but within a very reasonable time.
So can IESA facilitate a dialogue with DST, Department of Science and Technology, calling all the CSIR, DSIR, TDB, etc., and actually practically come to the field and see the difficulties of manufacturing companies? I think they should really come, and